Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My husband smirked and said, "My ex will be at Christmas dinner. Try not to make it awkward. Behave yourself for once." He did not even look up from his phone, just took another sip of his whiskey, like he was reminding me to pick up his dry cleaning instead of demanding that I host his ex-girlfriend in my own home. I stood in the kitchen of our high-rise condo in downtown Chicago, a dish towel in my hand, my fingers still damp from washing the dinner plates he barely touched. For a second, I could not move, could not breathe. The words hung between us like poison. Behave yourself for once. As if I were a misbehaving child instead of his wife of 4 years. "Of course, honey," I heard myself say, my voice calm, even pleasant. "Whatever you want." He finally glanced up, gave me that satisfied little smirk that used to make my heart flip. Now it made my stomach twist, because what Derek did not know, what he could not possibly know, was that I had already seen his phone. I knew exactly why his ex, Raven Ellis, was really coming to Christmas dinner. And I had sent an invitation, too. My name is Maya Carter, and 4 years earlier I thought I had won the lottery when Derek proposed. We met at a charity gala in the Loop where I was working as the event coordinator, racing around in a black dress with a clipboard, making sure the caterers stayed on schedule and the donors felt important. Derek was there representing the investment firm where he worked as an analyst, tall and magnetic in a tailored navy suit, with the quiet confidence of a man raised in money and expectation. He was charming when he wanted to be, and in those early days, he wanted to be. Flowers delivered to my office in Bronzeville. Reservations at restaurants that had months-long wait lists. Weekend trips to his parents' lake house in Michigan where the floors gleamed and the wine never ran out. He made me feel chosen, like I had been plucked from my ordinary life and set down in a better one. 6 months after our first date, he dropped to one knee on a rooftop terrace overlooking the Chicago skyline and asked me to marry him. I said yes before he finished the question. The changes came slowly, at first disguised as care. "That dress is a little much for a work dinner, do you not think?" he asked one night, eyeing the red sheath I had chosen. "Something more conservative would send a better message about us." "Us. Your friends are nice," he said later that year, "but they are not really our circle. Why not spend more time with people who can help both our careers?" There was always a reason, always a gentle explanation. The first real blow landed 8 months into our marriage. I had just been promoted to senior coordinator at the event firm I loved, and I came home bubbling with stories of a big pharmaceutical conference I had landed. Derek listened, leaned against the kitchen counter, and then said, "Event planning is fine for single women, baby, but now you are my wife. You do not need to work. We do not need the money. Honestly, planning parties is not exactly a real career. Stay home. Take care of the condo. Be my wife. Is that not what you want?" I remember hesitating, then seeing the expectation in his eyes. I wanted him to be proud of me. I wanted to be a good wife. So, I handed in my resignation. 3 years later, that decision haunted me every time I walked through our pristine condo. Everything was gray, cream, and glass. Sleek. Minimal. Expensive. Derek's taste, not mine. I would have chosen warm terracotta, bold blues, lush plants that spilled over their pots. He said jewel tones looked suburban, so we went with his aesthetic. I spent my days decorating, reorganizing shelves that did not need it, planning dinners for his colleagues and their wives. The wives were polite, even friendly, but there was a distance, an invisible barrier of careers and accomplishments. They talked about cases, surgeries, mergers. Then their eyes shifted to me. "And what do you do, Maya?" they asked in careful voices. "I am a homemaker," I said, smiling like it did not sting. Something always shifted in their expressions. Pity, maybe. Or dismissal. Derek started coming home later. "Working late," he said, shrugging off his coat. "Building our future." The one time I asked whether he truly needed to be at the office until 10 o'clock 3 nights in a row, something sharp slipped into his voice. "Do you think this lifestyle pays for itself? The apartment, the car, your card? Someone has to do the actual work." After that, I stopped asking. That October evening, I had tried to do something special. It was not an anniversary or birthday, just a random Tuesday when I wanted us to feel like us again. I spent the afternoon cooking Derek's favorite meal, pan-seared salmon with lemon butter, roasted asparagus with Parmesan wild rice pilaf. I set the table with our wedding china, lit candles, put on a navy dress he once called his favorite. He walked in at 9:14 p.m., glanced vaguely at the table, muttered, "Smells good," and went straight to the bar cart. I followed him, wiping suddenly sweaty palms on my dress. "Long day?" I asked. "You have no idea," he said, pouring whiskey. Then, casual as anything, he added, "By the way, my ex is moving back to town. Raven. She will be at Christmas dinner. She is important to me, so I need you to be mature about it." My hand tightened around the back of a chair. "Your ex-girlfriend from college?" He nodded, checking his phone. "We have stayed close. She will be alone for the holidays. We should include her." I suggested inviting my sister Lauren from Indianapolis instead. "She has been asking to visit," I said. "The kids would love Chicago at Christmas." Derek's mouth twisted. "Your sister talks too much. Besides, this is not about her. Raven is going to be part of our social circle. I need you to be mature. Try not to make it awkward. Behave yourself for once." The words sliced through me. Behave yourself. For once. But I smiled, served his dinner, and said, "Of course. I will make it special." 2 nights later, I stopped being the woman who swallowed that kind of humiliation. Derek was snoring beside me, one arm thrown across my side of the bed. His phone kept lighting up on the nightstand, the screen glowing like a restless eye. Usually I ignored it. Work emails. Market alerts. Nothing that concerned the harmless wife. That night, one preview line caught my attention. A text from R, the contact name just a single letter. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I miss you so much." My heart hammered so loudly I was sure it would wake him. His phone was unlocked. With hands that trembled only slightly, I opened the messages. The thread with R was not short. It ran back for months. Photos. Jokes. Late-night confessions. Raven. They had never stopped talking. They met in New York when he traveled for conferences I helped him pack for. They met in Milwaukee and Dallas, in hotel rooms I had never seen. They talked about the future they would have together once I was gone. And then I read my own name. "Does she suspect anything?" Raven asked in one message. "Not at all," Derek replied. "Maya is too focused on throw pillows and dinner parties to notice. She is harmless." Harmless. The word showed up again and again as I scrolled, sitting there in the dim light, my pulse roaring in my ears. "You always said she was simple," Raven wrote. "She is," Derek answered. "That is why I married her. Easy to manage. Easy to control. Not like you. You are on my level. I read more. I am telling her about Christmas tomorrow," Derek texted 3 days earlier. "Setting the stage." Raven replied, "Do you think she will take the hint?" Derek answered, "Eventually. I need her to initiate the divorce. Clean that way. My attorney says if she files first, I look like the victim. Plus, the prenuptial agreement kicks in. She signed it without even reading it. She gets almost nothing. By New Year's, she will be gone and we can stop hiding." I stared at the screen as my heartbreak cooled into something sharp and precise. Then I set the phone back exactly where I found it and lay on my side, eyes open in the dark, feeling something inside me quietly reassemble into a new shape. The next morning, while Derek showered, I unlocked the small safe in his office. He had insisted we keep important documents there. The title to the car, investment paperwork, our prenuptial agreement, which I had signed 4 days before our wedding without reading, because he said it was just a formality. "It protects us both," he had said, kissing my forehead. My parents' attorney drew it up. "Nothing you need to worry about." Sitting at his sleek glass desk, I read every word. The terms were ruthless. If I filed for divorce within 5 years, I would receive $50,000 and nothing else. No claim on the condo, even though the down payment came from my grandmother's inheritance. No alimony. No share of his retirement accounts. Nothing but whatever was in my personal checking account and a pat on the head. I almost closed it, almost accepted the trap, until a sentence on page 17 caught my eye. In the event of proven adultery by Derek Carter, all prenuptial conditions are void and marital assets shall be divided according to Illinois state law. Proven adultery. I took photos of every page and emailed them to an account Derek did not know existed. Then I slipped the document back into its folder and locked the safe, my hands steady. I needed proof that would hold up in court, not just texts I had seen alone at 2 o'clock in the morning. That afternoon I sat at the kitchen island with my laptop, the condo quiet around me, and searched online spaces I had never imagined I would read. Forums for women leaving marriages, advice threads about divorce law, anonymous posts about prenuptial agreements and infidelity in Illinois. Again and again, one name appeared in recommendations from women who sounded like me. Trina Cole, private investigator, former Chicago Police Department detective, specializes in infidelity and hidden assets. She believed me when no one else did, one woman wrote. She gave me the evidence that kept me from walking away with nothing. I sent Trina an email before I could lose my nerve. I need to document my husband's affair. Can we meet? An hour later, she responded. Coffee shop in Hyde Park. 3 o'clock tomorrow. Back corner. Blue blazer. The next day, I dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, nothing dramatic. Derek believed I was meeting Lauren for lunch. Hyde Park buzzed with students and families as I walked to the coffee shop, the air cold enough to sting my cheeks. Inside, I spotted a woman in her 50s with dark brown skin, silver at her temples, and sharp eyes that seemed to take in the whole room at once. She wore a blue blazer over a plain white shirt and rose as I approached. Maya, she asked. Yes. Thank you for meeting me. We shook hands, her grip firm. We sat, and for a moment she just watched me, assessing. Tell me what is going on, she said. I had rehearsed the story in my head the night before, but saying it aloud still scraped something raw inside me. My husband, Derek, is having an affair with his ex-girlfriend, Raven Ellis, I said. They have been involved for at least a year. She is moving back to Chicago. He is inviting her to Christmas dinner, so he can pressure me into filing for divorce. There is a prenuptial agreement. If I file, I get almost nothing. But there is an adultery clause. If I can prove he cheated, the agreement is void. Trina nodded slowly, opening a slim leather folder and taking out a notepad. How do you know about the affair? She asked. I found their messages, I said. On his phone. They talk about hotels, plans for their future, the way I am supposedly too simple to notice. My voice shook on that word, but I kept going. He told her that he wants me to file first, so he looks like the victim. He said I signed the prenuptial agreement without reading it, which is true. Trina's pen moved across the paper. I have been doing this work for 15 years, she said quietly. Before that, 20 years with the Chicago Police Department. I will tell you this now. Once you see the evidence I show you, you cannot unsee it. Even when you already know, seeing it is different. Are you sure you want to go down this road? I thought of Derek's smirk, his voice when he told me to behave myself. I pictured the word harmless on his phone screen, over and over. I already know, I said. I just need proof. For the first time, a hint of a smile touched Trina's mouth. Then let us get started. We spent an hour going over details. Derek's full name, his firm's name, his office address in the loop. His car, a black BMW sedan that he polished every Saturday like a ritual. His usual excuses. Late nights with clients, weekend conferences in other cities. I gave her Raven's name and the city she had moved back from. Boston. I handed over a list I had prepared of dates when I knew he was lying. The night he missed my parents' anniversary dinner. The weekend he was supposedly in Dallas, but his credit card statement showed a charge at a resort in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Trina asked whether Derek suspected I knew anything. No, I said. I have been playing the perfect wife. He thinks I am too busy picking out centerpieces to notice his life. Good, she said. Keep it that way. Right now, he is sloppy because he is confident. We want him to stay sloppy. When we finished, she slid a contract across the table. Her rates were not cheap, but they were not impossible either, and something in her steady gaze made me trust her. I signed. As I stood to leave, she said, Maya, one more thing. I turned. Do not blame yourself for trusting him, she said. People like him count on that trust. They weaponize it. All you are doing now is taking your power back. I carried those words with me all the way home. The next 2 weeks were a strange performance. By day, I played the role Derek had written for me. I planned a small holiday party for his coworkers. I ordered winter wreaths and arranged poinsettias along the hallway like a magazine spread. When Derek came home late, I asked how work had been and listened as he talked about deals and market volatility, words that blurred into a low drone. By night, when he finally fell asleep, I checked the anonymous email account on my laptop like it was a lifeline. Trina's first update arrived 3 days after our meeting. Attached were photos of Derek and Raven sitting in the bar of a luxury hotel in the Loop, his hand resting casually on her knee, her head tipped toward his shoulder, smiling. The timestamp read 1:42 p.m. on a Wednesday when he had told me he was having lunch with a client. The second email contained video footage from a parking garage downtown. Derek pressed Raven against his car and kissed her like a man half his age, the kind of kiss he had not given me in years. The third email showed a spreadsheet. Charges on a personal credit card I did not know he had, all in his name. Jewelry. Dinners. A weekend at a resort during a trip he said he spent in back-to-back meetings. By then, I no longer felt grief when I saw these things. The hurt had burned itself out, leaving a cold clarity in its place. Each photo, each receipt was a piece of armor. Then Trina's fourth message arrived with a subject line that made my stomach clench. Need to talk. Found something big. Call me. I waited until Derek left for the office, then dialed her number from the quiet of the bedroom. Raven works at the same firm as Derek, Trina said without preamble. She started a few months ago. She is an attorney there. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed. They are co-workers, I said. That explains why he brings her up so often. He talks about her like an authority on everything. There is more, Trina said. I started watching her as well to get a full picture. She is seeing another man besides your husband. Charles Bennett. Name sound familiar? My breath caught. The Bennett in Bennett Financial Group? I asked. Founding partner. Derek's boss. That is him, Trina said. Married. 3 children. I have photos of him and Raven at a restaurant in River North. Another set from a hotel. She is playing them both. For a moment I could not speak. Derek thought he was orchestrating everything. In reality, he was just one more piece on someone else's board. Trina sent me screenshots of messages between Raven and Charles that evening. Raven calling Derek clingy and naive. He still talks about true love, one text read. It is almost sweet. Almost. Another said, Derek is just a distraction while I wait for you to leave your wife. Raven spoke about using Derek's devotion and apartment as cover because Maya never questions anything. I stared at those lines until the words blurred. Then a different kind of thought slid into place, sharp-edged and satisfying. I could expose Derek. I already had enough. But what if I did more than that? What if I exposed everything all at once? What if I pulled down every mask in one night? I called Trina. How comfortable are you with something a little unconventional? I asked. She laughed softly. Unconventional is the only reason I still like this work. What did you have in mind? I want to contact Charles Bennett, I said. Anonymously at first. I want him to see what Raven has been doing. I want him and his wife to see it. And I want all of us in the same room when the truth lands. Over the next hour, Trina and I drafted an email. We used a secure account that could not be traced back to me. We kept the tone calm and factual. Mr. Bennett, you do not know me, but I know about the relationship you have been having with attorney Raven Ellis. You are not the only man she is seeing. She has been in a long-running affair with Derek Carter, an analyst at your firm. I have photographic and financial evidence. I believed you deserved to know the truth before you make any irreversible decisions. If you would like proof, reply to this message. Concerned colleague. Men like Bennett cannot resist this, Trina said. If nothing else, his ego will not let him ignore the possibility that he is being played. That night, after Derek fell asleep, I took my laptop to the bathroom, closed the door, attached a small selection of evidence, and hit send. My finger hovered for a full 5 seconds before I forced it down. I sank to the edge of the bathtub afterward, breathing in shallow bursts as if I had just stepped off a cliff. The next day, nothing happened. I checked the email at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 10 at noon. Nothing. By 2, I was convinced he had ignored it or sent it straight to his legal department. At 3:30, a new message appeared. Who is this, and how did you get this information? The words were clipped and furious. Trina and I had prepared for that response. I replied with more screenshots and photos, keeping my message short. Everything I have told you is true. Look at the dates, locations, and receipts. If you want more, I will provide it. An hour later, he wrote again. I confronted her. She says you are a liar. She says you are a jealous ex-girlfriend of mine, trying to cause trouble. Who are you? I stared at the blinking cursor. This was the pivotal moment. I could retreat into anonymity or step forward. I typed, my name is Maya Carter. I am Derek's wife. We have been married 4 years. He has invited Raven to our Christmas dinner. He believes I know nothing. He believes I am simple. I know everything. Here is what I propose. You and your wife join us for that dinner. We will give them exactly what they think they want, a lovely evening together. Then we show them what they have actually built. If you are interested in seeing the truth for yourself, write back. I hit send and closed the laptop, my hands shaking. 4 days passed. Derek chattered about year-end targets and bonus projections. He asked my opinion on wines Raven had recommended, and I nodded along as if my skin did not crawl every time he said her name. Lauren called, sensing something in my voice. "You sound strange, sis," she said. "Is everything okay?" I almost told her everything then, but I stopped myself. "Just tired," I said. "I will explain soon." Finally, on a Thursday afternoon, my laptop chimed. "I am in," the email read. "My wife will be with me. We have 3 children. She deserves to see the truth. Tell me what you need." This time I did not sit down. I paced the kitchen while I called Trina. "He agreed," I said. "He is bringing his wife." "Then we will give them a show," Trina replied. Her voice turned businesslike. "We will need everything organized. Timelines, photos, financials. We will need to coordinate arrival times. And you will need to be ready, Maya. Once this happens, your life will not go back to what it was." "I do not want it to," I said. And for the first time since I read Derek's texts, I meant it. The weeks leading up to Christmas moved at 2 speeds at once. On the surface, life looked normal. Derek and I hung garlands along the balcony. I ordered a tree that nearly touched the ceiling and decorated it in gold and white to match his preferred palette. We shopped on Michigan Avenue for gifts for his nieces and nephews. At his request, we stopped at a luxury boutique where he picked out a dove-gray cashmere scarf. "This will be perfect for Raven," he said. "You agree?" I stared at the soft fabric in his hands, at the almost boyish hopefulness in his expression. "She will love it," I said, and the words tasted like ash. Underneath all that, there were my secret negotiations. Emails with Charles and his wife, Patricia, confirming details. "We will be in the lobby at 6:20, he wrote. "When you text, we will come up." Meetings with Trina and my attorney, Valerie Green, in quiet coffee shops and law offices. Valerie drafted divorce papers and explained exactly how the adultery clause would dismantle the prenuptial agreement once we filed. "The evidence your investigator is compiling is overwhelming," Valerie said, flipping through photographs. "He will have no ground to stand on." At night, I lay awake beside Derek, staring at the ceiling, counting down to Christmas like a prisoner counting down to release. A week before Christmas, I called Lauren. "Are you still coming up for the holiday?" I asked. "Only if you are sure," she said. "I still cannot stand the way Derek talks to you. Every time I visit, I want to throw his expensive plates out the window." I let out a shaky laugh. "I need you here this year," I said. "But I need you to come alone." There was a pause. "Without the kids?" "Yes. And Lauren, when things start happening, I need you to record it on your phone and keep recording no matter what." "Maya, what are you talking about?" Her voice sharpened with concern. "What is going to happen?" I swallowed. "I cannot explain yet. But I promise you this. Whatever happens, it is going to be me finally doing something for myself." She was quiet for a long moment. "You sound different," she said softly. "Stronger." "I hope so." "All right," she said at last. "I will be there. And if Derek tries anything, I will have my phone and my car keys and very little patience." "That is exactly what I am counting on," I said. Christmas Day dawned cold and bright, the park below our windows dusted in white. Derek was still asleep when I slipped out of bed at 5 in the morning and padded to the kitchen. This would be the last holiday meal I cooked as his wife. I seasoned the prime rib with garlic and rosemary, placed it in the oven, and watched the heat fog the glass door. I boiled potatoes, mashed them with butter and cream, and tossed Brussels sprouts with chopped bacon and balsamic glaze. I baked sweet rolls from scratch just to have something to knead, something to take the edge off my nerves. Around noon, I set the dining table with our wedding china, lining crystal glasses in a straight, gleaming row. 7 place settings. 1 for me, 1 for Derek, 1 for Lauren, 1 for Raven, 2 for Charles and Patricia Bennett, and 1 more for Trina, who would arrive early and stay unobtrusively near the kitchen, her small camera tucked into her bag. Derek wandered into the dining room in his robe, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Why are there so many plates?" he asked, frowning. "I invited Lauren," I said with mild cheer. "You said you did not want her here," he muttered. "It is Christmas," I replied. "She is my only sister." He sighed but did not argue. He did not ask about the extra place settings. Of course he did not. He had never expected me to be anything but obedient. Lauren arrived at 5:30, wrapped in a long camel coat, her hair twisted up in a knot. She hugged me tightly in the hallway, stepping back to study my face. "You look like you have not slept in a month," she said. "You look like you are about to do something spectacular." I smiled weakly. "Maybe both." I pulled her into the kitchen, away from Derek's line of sight. "Whatever happens tonight, start recording when I stand up from the table before dessert," I whispered. "Do not stop unless I tell you." "Is he hurting you?" she demanded, her eyes flashing. "If he has laid a hand on you." "He has not," I said quickly. "This is about something else. Please trust me." Her jaw clenched. "I trust you," she said. "I do not trust him. But if you say you have a plan, I am with you." We stepped back into the dining room just as Derek emerged from the bedroom in a dark green sweater and fresh cologne. "Merry Christmas, Lauren," he said smoothly. She replied, "Merry Christmas," in a tone that suggested the opposite. He did not appear to notice. At exactly 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Derek practically sprang from his chair, smoothing his sweater as he hurried to the door. I stayed near the table, my hands resting lightly on the back of my chair, forcing my breathing to stay even. I heard his voice in the foyer, warm in a way it had not been for me in a long time. "Raven, you look incredible," he said. "Always," a woman's voice replied, rich and confident. When they stepped into the dining room, I saw that she did. Raven was tall, with deep brown skin and a sleek bob that framed her face perfectly. She wore a cream cashmere sweater and tailored black trousers, and she carried a bottle of wine and a small gift bag embroidered with Derek's initials. Every detail of her screamed success. "Maya," Derek said, "this is Raven." She smiled, a flash of white teeth, eyes flicking over me quickly, taking inventory. "It is so good to finally meet you," she said. "Derek has told me so much about you and your beautiful home." Her tone was warm, but there was calculation behind it. "Thank you," I said, taking her coat. "I am glad you could join us." Our eyes met for a second longer than necessary. I wondered whether she saw anything in mine. We sat, and the evening unfolded like any other carefully curated dinner, at least on the surface. I served prime rib, mashed potatoes, Brussels sprouts, refilling glasses and smiling at the right times. Raven praised everything with just enough emphasis to sound slightly patronizing. "You are so talented in the kitchen, Maya," she said, lifting her fork. "I could never do all of this. My schedule is too demanding. Being on the partnership track at the firm takes everything." "Maya was an event planner before we married," Derek said, already halfway through his second glass of wine. "She handled charity galas, conferences, that sort of thing." Raven tilted her head. "That sounds fun," she said. "A very creative way to spend your 20s. She was senior coordinator at one of the best boutique firms in the city," Lauren cut in, her tone crisp. "It was more than fun." Raven's smile did not falter. "Of course," she said. "But I imagine it is nice not to have the pressure anymore. Not everyone is built for high-stress careers. Some people thrive more in domestic roles." The silence that followed was heavy. Derek cleared his throat. "Raven is about to make partner at the firm," he said proudly. "Youngest one in years." "Congratulations," I said. "You must be very good at navigating office politics." "I am," Raven replied, her eyes gleaming. "You have to understand what powerful people want and make yourself indispensable to them." The conversation shifted, but the dynamic did not. Raven dominated. Derek fed her openings. He asked about a case she had handled in Boston, some complex dispute that she described in detail. "It was brutal," she said. "But I know how to manage partners like Charles Bennett. You give them what they need before they ask for it." Lauren's fork clinked against her plate. "And what do they give you?" she asked. Raven smiled coolly. "Opportunities," she said. "Influence. The chance to build the life I deserve." Derek laughed. "Raven has always been ambitious," he said. "That is what I admire about her." I glanced at the clock on the wall. 6:20. My pulse began to race. Raven lifted her glass and studied the wine. "This is an excellent vintage," she said. I recommended it to Derek. "I knew you would appreciate something refined." "We appreciate that you took the time to join us," I said. "It must be hard to fit a quiet family dinner into your schedule." She nodded. "It is rare," she said. But Derek insisted. "He said you would be gracious." She looked at me as she added, "He was right." I smiled. "I wanted tonight to be unforgettable," I said. "And it will be." At 6:23, I pushed my chair back. "Before dessert, I have a small surprise," I said. Derek looked up, distracted. "What kind of surprise?" he asked. "You said you wanted this to be special," I replied. So I invited a few more guests. Raven's hand tightened around her wine glass. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. Who? Derek demanded. I lifted my phone beneath the table, opened the message thread with Charles, and typed one word. Now. There was a brief pause, then 3 dots appeared. A moment later, the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the condo like a bell in a courtroom. Derek frowned. Who is that? You will see, I said. Lauren's phone was already in her hand, recording. She tried to look casual as she leaned back in her chair. I walked to the door, every step measured. When I opened it, Charles Bennett stood in the hallway in a dark overcoat, his face composed but his eyes flat and cold. Beside him was his wife, Patricia, in a simple black dress and a coat trimmed with fur. Her hair was streaked with silver, and her expression was carved from ice. Good evening, Mrs. Carter, Charles said. Thank you for the invitation. Please come in, I said. When we stepped back into the dining room, Raven's face drained of color. Her glass slipped in her hand, splashing red wine across the white tablecloth like a sudden wound. Charles, she whispered. What are you doing here? Derek lurched to his feet, the legs of his chair scraping hard against the floor. What is this? He shouted, looking from me to Charles to Raven. Maya, what have you done? Everyone, please sit, I said. My voice sounded calm, even to me. We have a lot to cover. Patricia took a seat with smooth, deliberate movements. Charles remained standing, his gaze fixed on Raven. Derek stayed frozen until I looked at him and said, Sit down, Derek. There must have been something he had never heard in my tone before, because he obeyed. I walked to the sideboard where I had placed my tablet earlier and connected it to the television mounted on the wall. Trina, I said softly. From the kitchen doorway, Trina stepped into view, a small camera in her hand. Derek stared at her. Who are you? He demanded. A private investigator, I said. I hired her. She has been working for me for weeks. Raven let out a harsh laugh. You cannot be serious, she said, but her voice shook. The television screen flickered to life, and the first photo appeared. Derek and Raven at the hotel bar, his hand on her knee, her smile intimate. The date and time stamp glowed in white text at the bottom. This was your client lunch on September 14th, I said quietly. I swiped to the next photo. Them kissing in the parking garage, pressed against his car. And this, I continued, was when you told me you were too busy finishing quarterly reports to come home for dinner. Derek stared at the images as if they were of strangers. Where did you get these? He asked hoarsely. I told you, I said. I hired Trina. I kept going. Hotel lobbies. A suburban resort. Raven's apartment building. Each image anchored by dates and times that lined up with Derek's lies. At last, I switched folders. The next photo showed Raven and Charles at a candlelit table in an expensive restaurant, their hands touching across the plates. Patricia's jaw clenched, but she did not look away. And these, I said, belong to another story. I showed Raven entering Charles's office building late at night, leaving hours later. I read aloud messages recovered from her accounts. Raven complaining about Derek's neediness, about his belief in a future she never intended to give him. Raven describing Charles as her real prize. Hudson, Derek, keeps talking about our future. I read from one text. He wants me to tell his wife everything. It is so tiresome. As if I would seriously choose an analyst over a founding partner. Derek flinched like the words were physical. That is not what this was, he stammered, looking at Raven. Tell them. Another message. I use his apartment when I cannot risk hotel charges popping up on your card. His wife never questions anything. She is easy to distract with flowers and compliments. That one landed like a slap. Charles's voice was controlled when he finally spoke. Show them the rest, he said. I read the messages where Raven mocked both men. They are both so predictable, one said. Powerful, but weak in all the same ways. Raven stood abruptly, knocking her chair backward. Her calm, polished mask was gone. You are all beneath me, she snapped. Derek, you begged me to leave with you. You followed me around campus like a lovesick teenager back then, and you have not changed. You were never anything but a distraction. And you, she said, turning to Charles, did you really think I was sleeping with you because I was in love? You were an opportunity, nothing more. The room was silent except for Raven's ragged breathing. She rounded on me last. And you, Maya, you thought you were so clever, sneaking around with your investigator. You are still simple. You are still the woman who gave up her career to sit in this pretty box and wait for a man to come home. You just had help this time. A strange calm settled over me. Did I? I asked. I am the one who found the adultery clause in the prenuptial agreement. I am the one who hired Trina, who contacted Charles, who planned this entire evening down to the minute. I am the one who invited you all here. Does that sound simple to you? Raven opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time, she looked genuinely unsure. Patricia stood, smoothing her dress, and looked at me directly. Thank you, she said, her voice low but steady, for sending those emails, for giving me the proof I needed. She turned to Charles. We are leaving, she said. We will discuss the rest with my attorney present. He started to speak, but she cut him off with a raised hand. Not here. Not now. They left without another look at Raven. When the Bennetts were gone, I reached under the tree and picked up a small box wrapped in gold paper. I placed it in front of Derek. Do you remember the prenuptial agreement your parents' attorney wrote? I asked. The one I signed without reading because I trusted you? He swallowed. Maya, please. Page 17, I said. In the event of proven adultery, the agreement is void. I set a neat stack of documents on the table. These are divorce papers. Valerie Green, my attorney, will file them Monday morning at 9 o'clock. With the evidence we have gathered, texts, photos, receipts, Trina's testimony, the prenuptial agreement no longer protects you. The condo you bought with my inheritance funds, your retirement accounts, your investments, all of it will be divided according to state law. Derek stared at the papers, his hands trembling slightly. You planned all of this, he said in a small voice. You invited them. You played me. I met his eyes. You told Raven I was harmless, I said. You called me easy to manage and easy to control. You planned to humiliate me in my own home, to force me to serve your mistress dinner, so I would finally break and file for divorce on your schedule. You thought you were in control. You were wrong. No one spoke. Raven grabbed her coat from the closet and fumbled with the sleeves, finally giving up and clutching it against her chest. I am not staying here for this, she said, voice shaking. You will all regret this. I will land on my feet. I always do. She stumbled toward the door, heels loud against the hardwood floor. A second later, the door slammed behind her. Trina quietly stepped closer to the table, turning off her camera. I have more than enough, she said to me quietly. I will send everything to Valerie tonight. Lauren lowered her phone, the recording icon finally disappearing. She looked at me, at Derek, then back at me. Do you need me to stay? She asked. Her voice was gentle now. Give us a minute, I said. But do not go far. She nodded and stepped into the living room, just out of earshot. Derek sat with his shoulders slumped, his eyes fixed on the divorce papers. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded younger than I had ever heard it. Where do I go? He asked. The question startled me. What? Where do I go tonight? He repeated, looking up at me, eyes glassy. Do I pack a bag and go to a hotel? To my parents? Do I stay with a coworker? I do not know what to do. For a heartbeat, old instincts stirred. For 4 years I had softened every blow for him, smoothed every inconvenience. Comforting him now would have been the most natural thing in the world. Instead, I straightened my back. I do not care where you go, I said. This condo is mine. You have until Monday to collect your things. After that, I will have the locks changed. Maya, please, he whispered. I am sorry. I never meant for. It does not matter what you meant, I cut in. It matters what you did. You lied. You cheated. You planned to leave me with nothing. You called me simple while you were being played by the woman you thought was on your level. I stood. You may go pack a bag now. Lauren will stay until you leave. He stared at me for a long moment, then rose and walked to the bedroom without another word. When the bedroom door closed behind him, my legs gave out. I sank into a chair, hands shaking for the first time that night. Lauren rushed back to my side and wrapped her arms around me. You did it, she murmured into my hair. You actually did it. The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. I cried for the girl I had been at that charity gala, for the woman who left a job she loved, for every time I had bitten my tongue to keep the peace. Why does this hurt so much? I whispered. I won. I am keeping the condo. I exposed them. So why does it feel like my chest is breaking open? Lauren smoothed my hair like our mother used to. Because you loved him, she said. Because you built your life around a man who did not deserve you. Winning does not erase that. It just means you refuse to let that be the end of your story. Somewhere down the hallway, drawers opened and closed. Suitcases thumped. I did not move. When Derek finally walked past us with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder, he paused. I truly am sorry, he said quietly. I did not answer. The door clicked shut behind him, and the condo felt vast and echoing. In the days that followed, everything moved quickly. Valerie filed the divorce papers first thing Monday morning. A process server delivered them to Derek at his office in front of his coworkers. Valerie called me afterward. He went pale and left immediately, she reported. His attorney has already reached out. They know they have no leverage. By the end of January, the financial details were mostly settled. Derek agreed to give up his claim on the condo. I would receive half of his retirement and investment accounts, as well as a lump sum settlement. He wants to disappear, Valerie said during one meeting. He hopes cooperation will keep this quieter. It would not. Word traveled quickly through Derek's professional circle. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Raven had been fired from the firm within 48 hours of Christmas. Charles resigned from his position while Patricia filed for divorce of her own, seeking primary custody and a large share of their assets. The story of the ambitious attorney who seduced a partner and a junior analyst at the same time spread through Chicago's legal world like a cautionary tale. Once the paperwork was complete, the silence settled in. The condo felt strange without Derek's belongings. I spent one long Saturday pulling his suits from the closet, stacking his shoes by the door, and handing over boxes to the movers he hired. When they left, I sat on the living room floor and looked around. The gray walls, the cool art he chose because it was a good investment, the glass coffee table that always showed fingerprints. All of it felt like someone else's life. The next week, I bought paint. Deep, rich blue for the living room. Soft sage green for the bedroom. Warm cream for the hallway. I replaced the black and white photographs of city skylines with vibrant paintings from local artists and framed pictures of my family. I turned Derek's office into a studio and bought a set of paints and canvases. I had not picked up a brush in years, but once I started, I could not stop. Abstract shapes. Swirls of red and gold. Stormy blues broken by sudden white streaks. Every canvas felt like a wordless confession. I cut my hair just past my shoulders and started running along the lakefront path in the mornings, wrapping myself in a hoodie and watching the city wake up around me. At first, my lungs burned and my legs ached, but a few weeks later, the movement began to feel less like punishment and more like release. I joined an online support group for women navigating divorce. At first, I just read stories of betrayal, control, subtle cruelties that sounded achingly familiar. One evening, someone mentioned a woman in Chicago who had turned the tables on her cheating husband and his mistress at. I cut my hair just past my shoulders and started running along the lakefront path in the mornings, wrapping myself in a hoodie and watching the city wake up around me. At first, my lungs burned and my legs ached, but a few weeks later, the movement began to feel less like punishment and more like release. I joined an online support group for women navigating divorce. At first, I just read stories of betrayal, control, subtle cruelties that sounded achingly familiar. One evening, someone mentioned a woman in Chicago who had turned the tables on her cheating husband and his mistress at Christmas. The details were vague, but I recognized the bones of my story. Responses poured in. People arguing about whether I had gone too far, not far enough, or just far enough. I sat staring at the screen for a long time before typing my first comment. I did not say I was that woman. I just wrote, sometimes you have to choose between your comfort and your self-respect. Only one of those is worth fighting for. Messages started trickling into my inbox after that. The first came from a woman named Jennifer, a teacher in Ohio. She wrote, my husband controls all the money, criticizes everything I do, and tells me I am dramatic when I cry. I just found messages on his phone. He says they are nothing. I feel like I am losing my mind. I heard your story in the group. I do not know what to do. I stared at her words, feeling the echo of nights when I lay awake in my own bed, wondering if I was the problem. I replied, you are not crazy. You are being gaslit. Start documenting everything. Keep copies of what you see. Open an account he does not know about. Talk to a lawyer, even if you are not sure you want to leave yet. Knowledge is power. She wrote back, thank you. Your story made me believe I might have options. We scheduled a call. We spoke for 2 hours, my coffee growing cold beside me as I walked her through how to find a reputable investigator, what questions to ask an attorney, how to protect herself quietly. When we hung up, she said, you sound so calm. Were you always this strong? I thought of myself in that kitchen, dish towel clenched in my hand. No, I said. But I decided I had to become strong, and then I kept going until I started to believe it. Word spread in the way it always does, quietly and efficiently among women who are desperate for a path out. Jennifer told a friend, who told a cousin, who told her coworker. Emails began to arrive once or twice a week, then nearly every day. Some women had children. Some had none. Some were married to men who cheated. Others to men who never lifted a hand but cut them down with words. I could not fix their lives, but I could share what I had learned. How to check a prenuptial agreement for hidden traps. How to copy documents without leaving a trail. How to keep a journal in case emotional abuse became part of a legal case. I never promised them revenge. I promised them clarity and choices. Eventually, I began charging a small fee on a sliding scale, insisting that my time had value too. Almost by accident, I turned my pain into a consulting business, discreet, specialized, and fiercely loyal to my clients. On a soft June morning, 6 months after that Christmas dinner, I finished a run along the path and slowed to a walk as my building came into view. My phone buzzed with a message from Lauren. Brunch this weekend? It read, I want to toast to 6 months of you being fearless. I smiled and typed, absolutely. I will bring the expensive champagne. That is my girl, she replied. I am so proud of you. Another notification appeared while I waited for the elevator. An email from a woman named Michelle. She wrote, I am 32 years old. My husband has never hit me, but he controls everything. The money, where I go, who I see. I just found messages to another woman. He says I am overreacting. I read about what you did, and for the first time I do not feel weak. Could we talk? I leaned against the cool metal wall of the elevator and typed back, yes. You are not overreacting. You are seeing clearly. We can talk this afternoon if you would like. You are not alone. Her response came almost immediately. Thank you. I have never told anyone before. I stepped into my condo, and breathed in the faint scent of coffee and oil paint. The deep blue walls caught the sunlight, turning almost purple where it hit the canvases. Plants trailed from shelves. A half-finished painting leaned against the wall in the studio that used to be Derek's office, strokes of orange and white cutting through a field of stormy gray. I poured myself coffee and stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the park below. Children chased each other through the grass. Couples walked hand in hand. Somewhere in the city, Derek was rebuilding his life in whatever shape he could. Somewhere else, Raven was trying to find a firm that would overlook the wreckage she left behind. Charles and Patricia were negotiating the end of a long marriage. None of that felt like my concern anymore. My concern was the women who called and wrote, the ones who whispered. I thought it was just me, and then fell silent, waiting for someone to tell them they were not crazy. I thought back to that night in October, to the moment Derek told me to behave myself for once. He had expected compliance. Quiet, graceful retreat. Instead, I orchestrated my own liberation. I did not feel triumphant every day. Some nights I still lay awake and grieved the future I had once imagined with him. Children who would never be born, trips we would never take, holidays that would never happen. But those moments came less often. More and more, my life felt like something I was actively building, not something I was merely surviving. The woman who signed that prenuptial agreement without reading it was gone. In her place was someone who read every line of every contract, who asked hard questions, who believed she deserved answers. My phone buzzed again with a calendar reminder for a call with Michelle. I picked it up, feeling a small, steady surge of purpose. This was who I was now, the woman other women reached out to when the ground started to crumble under their feet. The woman who knew how to gather evidence and plan a quiet exit, and if necessary, make a very loud statement. The harmless wife had vanished the night she opened her husband's phone. In her place stood someone Derek had never bothered to imagine. A strategist, a survivor, and a witness for others. I took one more sip of coffee, set the mug down, and pressed the call button. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.